You and Your Problems. Venerable Dr. K Sri Dhammananda. The Losing Battle. Through the advances of science and technology, man has brought the world under his sway. He believes he can turn the world into a paradise by discovering the secrets of nature, gaining mastery over it. The unquenchable thirst for domination over land, sea, air and space has made him continually search for new territories to conquer in the outside world, so much so that he has neglected to understand the world within himself. All the discoveries of the external world do not bring him nearer to peace and happiness. They only succeed in making his mind more tense and disconnected. Peace and happiness can be found if we make the effort. But to do this, we must first learn to see things in their true perspective. The act of living is like fighting a big battle. It seems like a losing battle of trying to experience pleasure and avoid suffering and death, because all beings will ultimately suffer unsatisfactoriness and finally die. In the process of that struggle, they enjoy a little bit of emotional satisfaction, which are mistaken for pleasure. Most people mistake this for happiness. How can there be happiness if the mind and heart are not completely free from fear, tension, insecurity? People indulge their senses to obtain transient physical satisfaction. This satisfaction can only too easily be turned into unhappiness the very next moment. Therefore, there doesn't seem to be complete and lasting satisfaction in the emotional and physical happiness they experience in the stream of life. It is only through training and calming of the mind that selfishness and guilt are overcome. True happiness can be experienced. The state of unhappiness amidst phenomenal progress is illustrated by the fact that about 18.7% of the adults in the United States, that means more than 1 in 6, suffer from some kind of psychological problems. This is the same society that has enabled man to land on the moon and conquer space. What did man gain by landing on the moon? Did he discover anything that can help him get rid of mental disturbances? Sickness, old age, death, or even to tame his mind in order to enable him to live peacefully with others. Perhaps it's a good thing that he has not yet discovered precious metals like gold or gems like diamonds on the moon. Otherwise there would probably be a bloodbath among nations and our attempt to gain dominance over the moon. All the great religious teachers have advised mankind that true happiness is not to be achieved by seeking to possess worldly things through selfish means or trampling down other people, depriving them of their human rights, but by sharing their happiness with others, rejoicing in others' happiness. Jesus taught, "What profit does a man show who gains the whole world and destroys himself in the process?" Mark chapter 8, verse 36. One should not acquire material things through unscrupulous and selfish means. Simplicity and contentment are essential ingredients for happiness. According to Gandhi, the fewer the necessities, the greater the happiness. The Greek philosopher Epicurus once said that if you want to make a man happy, add not to his riches, but take away from his desires. W. Evan Wentz had this to say: to have but few desires and satisfaction with simple things are a sign of a superior man. One cause of the problems we are now facing is man's unwillingness to share his gain or pleasure with his fellow beings. Unless man learns to share and cultivate his mind to understand things without bias and discrimination, it'll be impossible for peace to reign on this earth. Benefits of contentment. One day, a king approached the Buddha, asked a question. When I look at your disciples, I can see serenity, cheerfulness, very radiant complexion in them. I've also heard that they take only one meal a day. But I really cannot understand how they maintain this lifestyle. And the Buddha gave a beautiful answer. My disciples do not regret what they might have done in the past, but continue to do more and more meritorious deeds. It's not by repeating, repenting, praying, worshipping, but by doing some service to others that people can overcome the mistakes that they might have done in the past. My disciples never worry about their future. They are satisfied with whatever they receive, and thereby maintain contentment. They would never say that this or that is not enough for them. That is their way of life. Therefore they are able to maintain a state of serenity, cheerfulness, and a good complexion as a result of that contentment. Anyone can also try to maintain this cheerfulness by being contented. Should anybody ask why we cannot be satisfied in our lives, although we have more than enough things, what would be the correct answer? The correct answer to give is we have no contentment. If there is indeed contentment, we would never say that we are not satisfied with this or that. We cannot satisfy ourselves due to the conflict between our insatiable selfish desire and the law of impermanence, anicca. One of the best advices given by the Buddha for us to practice as a principle is contentment is the highest wealth. A wealthy man is not necessarily a rich man. A wealthy man is in perpetual fear of his life, always in a state of suspicion and fear, thinking people are waiting to kidnap him. A wealthy man cannot go out without a security guard, and in spite of the many iron gates and locks in his house, he can't sleep without fear and worry. In comparison, a contented man is indeed a very lucky man, because his mind is free from all those disturbances. He indeed is rich. What then is contentment? When a person thinks, this much is enough for me, and for my family, and I do not want anything beyond that, then that is contentment. If everybody could think in this way, then there cannot be any problems. When we maintain this contentment, jealousy can never cloud our mind, and thereby we allow others also to enjoy their lives. If there is no jealousy, anger also cannot arise. If there is no anger, there will be no violence and bloodshed, and everybody can then live peacefully. A contented life always gives one hope and confidence. This is not idealistic, For more than 25 centuries, men and women in the community of Buddhist monks and nuns have lived such peaceful lives. They had only 4 requisites: food, shelter, clothing, medicine. No one really needs anything else for survival. And many Buddhists, householders too, have lived contentedly, not allowing their greed to overtake their basic needs. Surprising how little we really need to be contented. Think about it. Nature of the mind. Human values originate in human beings, from our own rational minds. It is for this reason that we are described as manusa, one who has a mind to think. The word man itself is derived from the Sanskrit word manas, meaning one who has a mind to reason. Lord Buddha stated that mind is the forerunner of everything in this world, thus differentiating us who have this faculty from other living beings which do not possess the power to practice rational thought. Other living beings, such as animals, do not possess human characteristics. They are unable to use their sense of reasoning. They are unable to philosophize as humans do. Human beings are considered as unique in this world. Being unique, their minds must be properly trained, spiritually guided through the noble teachings of religion, so that the mind can reason and work for the good of humanity, rather than causing disasters in this world. Speaking without thinking is shooting without aiming. The preamble to the UNESCO Constitution contains a most significant phrase. Since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defence of peace must be constructed. In the human minds originate all the evils in this world, and it is through the proper cultivation of the mind that we can cause all the evils to be eradicated for the good of humanity. While we are fortunate to be able to cultivate our minds to work intelligently and to serve humanity, there is an unfortunate aspect within our human character that is not found in other living beings, and that is human craftiness, cunningness, easily overshadows all other important human values. It can be said that practically all the problems, suffering, chaotic conditions prevailing in this world are the results of human selfishness, cunningness, crookedness, a trait that is extremely difficult to eradicate. If human beings were given complete freedom to behave according to their own desires, they may even destroy the whole world within a short spell. Through new discoveries, humans have become so dangerous that even their very existence has been called into doubt. However, religion should play an important part in diverting the human being away from these unfortunate traits of craftiness or cunningness. Religion, with its noble precepts, working for the spiritual upliftment of human beings and the eradication of all evil, should serve as a compass to guide the human mind on to the path of peace and tranquility for the good and well-being of all. Buddhism, in common with other religions, strives to eradicate all evil and works for the well-being of others. According to the Buddha, the most valuable asset for us is our ability to cultivate and nurture our mind to achieve wisdom. This is the foundation of Buddhism. Real human values can be found amongst those who have developed their minds to the fullest extent in accordance with the teachings of the Buddha. Unfortunately for many of us, our minds are deluded, clouded by ignorance, selfishness, even though all of us have the ability to attain the ultimate, the divine nature. Because of delusion, certain defilements such as anger, jealousy, and hatred exist within us. These mental defilements act as hindrances to our enlightenment, with the result that we're unable to realize the real human values inherent in us. Lead a normal life and be happy. In explaining the teachings of the Buddha, certain people have unfortunately created a wrong impression that the Buddha had advised all his followers to give up all worldly possessions and lead an unprofitable life without the necessity of either working or earning a living and without experiencing any form of worldly pleasure. Such a view has gained currency amongst quite a number of people who are under a complete misapprehension about the Buddha's teachings. On the other hand, we must understand that renunciation is the most important aspect to have peace of mind. But that should be done through the realization of the fleeting nature of worldly pleasures. Instead of advising his followers to lead an inactive life without doing any form of work, the Buddha, in his discourse on the 4 kinds of happiness which man can experience, clearly indicated that a man must work hard in order to acquire wealth and to lead a prosperous worldly life. The method to develop human values in Buddhism is simple. One must work hard and be conscientious. One must not waste one's time unnecessarily idling away and doing nothing. Even regarding sleep, one must be rational while keeping it to the minimum necessary for health. One should not give lame excuses that either the day is too hot or too cold for the allotted work to be done. Be constructive and conscientious in whatever you do. It was recorded that the Buddha himself was the most energetic and active religious teacher who has ever lived in the world. During his 45 years of noble service to mankind, it was reputed that he only slept for a period of 2 hours each day. He travelled all over the country, advising people how to lead a noble way of life, but not for converting people. Knowing well that there are human frailties and shortcomings, the Buddha advised his followers to be careful in associating with people. One must associate with good people. Certain so-called friends are far from being friends, ever ready to cheat and swindle. A certain Western scholar once concocted a prayer. Lord, please protect me from my friends. I know how to protect myself from my enemies. The Buddha advised us to understand who our friends are, and in associating with people, we must try to understand their character, temperament, mood. The Buddha's advice is that it is better to live alone if you can't find a reliable friend. Pleasure and happiness. Although many disturbances are not apparent to us, certain evil thoughts, which are deeply rooted in the mind, may still remain. At some moment we may be quiet and look nice, because there are no disturbances to agitate us. But if some disturbances arise, we soon change our attitude and become violent, ugly. At the same time, the sensual pleasure that momentarily appears in the mind, we mistakenly regard as happiness. It is in fact not happiness. Pleasure is merely emotional satisfaction. The fleeting nature of pleasure is such that it disappears at the very next moment. The seeking of pleasure must not be confused with the seeking of happiness. Pleasure is elusive, temporary, and it can leave a bitter aftertaste. Also, it can be costly, yet unsatisfactory. Not so happiness, which does not have to be purchased. It comes from an inner source, the mind, and it is long-lasting. The pleasure we have at this moment sometimes creates disappointment because of the fleeting nature of the pleasure, and at the same time, we cannot gain happiness by keeping mental impurities such as fear, anger, jealousy, malice, and ill will in our mind. When these are not active in the mind, then we regard the brightness that temporarily appears in the mind as happiness. A lot of nonsense. A lot of fuss, a lot of tears, a lot of people, a lot of money, a lot of time, and all for what? A lot of trouble, a little body, a blob of protein, fast unwinding, a little corpse, quick decaying. No longer is it dear father, mother, or any darling other. In spite of this, we must have consolations and coffins, processions and tombstones, parties and mourning, rites and rituals, buried or burnt, embalmed forever, all for these little bloated bodies. Sons remember, grandsons little, and after them are the dead forgotten, stones and bones alone remaining. So is this not a lot of nonsense? Cantipalo. Problems in the modern age. The modern age is marked with unprecedented transience. Changes take place so rapidly that we have lost our sense of balance. No longer is the world in the state of calm it had been in the past. This is an age of turbulence in which the traditional societies are crumbling before the monster of modernism. The rate of change occurs at a vastly accelerated pace. Changes that in the past would take hundreds or even thousands of years to materialize are suddenly now packed into a few years, almost like the case of a boy who suffered from progenia. Only 11 years old, and he died in March 1967 in Canada from advanced aging. He had symptoms of senility, hardened arteries, baldness, slack, wrinkled skin. The characteristics of 90 years of aging all packed into his 11 years of existence. And during the last 100 years, tremendous changes which started in the developed countries have swept throughout the world. We witness worldwide population explosions, rapid rise of industrial economies and urbanization, unprecedented expansion of knowledge, rapid technological innovations, erosion of traditional values, and the growth and disappearance of new forms and subcultures. Changes in all these spheres have had a tremendous impact on the socio-cultural aspects of societies. Rapid change inevitably produces massive transformation of society, bringing disorganization and chaos to all levels of human experience and institutions, personal, family, social, and global. People are facing frustration, restlessness, and anger, not quite knowing how to deal with the heightened pace of transiency and paradoxical conduct of human affairs in the political, economic, social spheres. The deep-rooted frustration is expressed through increased violence, intolerance, drug abuse in society today. At the same time, moral values have changed as a result of materialism and inclinations to sensual pleasures, as well as the changing socio-economic roles of the two sexes. There's been an increase in the rates of divorces, separations, casual extramarital affairs, incidents of sexually transmitted diseases, all indicative that the marriage institution is on trial. There are many people who believe that marriage is now out of date, which can be dispensed with. Nations have reached the pitch of insanity, especially in the armament race of building up military hardware, which endangers all forms of existence on Earth. If mankind does not start learning how to live peacefully with one another and use science and technology with responsibility, it's doubtful if human civilization, as we know it, can long exist. In every country today, people are trying to produce nuclear weapons for their destructive purposes. It is a big competition. They also produce biological and chemical weapons for the destruction of the human beings. In other words, has mankind a future? Very limited, if the present trend of universal degradation continues. But can mankind have a future? Yes, if it reforms its ways and relearns to live in accordance with the noble, moral, spiritual standards taught by the Buddha and other religious teachers. Just as a chain is as strong as the strength of its individual links, for there to be peace and happiness in the world, individuals comprising families, societies, and ultimately the world must be at peace with itself. This is also like a pyramid. Its various components within the levels must be strengthened. In the modern age, man is reaching out and seeking more and more sense stimulation. The popularity of the portable radio, with or without earphones, television, is a clear indication of the present trend to seek for more and more sense stimulation. And by all this we have become alienated from ourselves. We do not know our own real nature, or the real nature of our mind, to be more precise. Moreover, we go about our business in social life, wearing masks, appropriate for each occasion. We often do not show our true feelings of jealousy, greed, hatred, pride, or selfishness. We hide them in socially accepted ways of formalized verbal expressions such as congratulations, thank you, deepest sympathies. But there are times when our negative emotions are so acute that they come into the open in the form of violence, stealing, quarrelling, backbiting, so forth. But generally, we try to keep these venomous snakes of negative emotions inhibited